Hello there, this is Big Brain Zeeebo speaking and welcome to this AFK journey video. So in today's AFK journey video, we're going to run through the Celestial Hypogean priority guide updated to Cryonaia after observing her meta usage itself. So first of all, for today's video, as usual, I'll be talking about the individual Celestial Hypogean units, some more briefly than others because their usage as well as their recommendation didn't change so much. But I will be adding a skippable this season tag for the Celestial Hypogean recommendation because there are certain units which are just not that good this season. Specifically, either they are really niche, very limited in terms of usage, or even within the niche they are good at, they don't have the strongest teams. So that's why they have this tag right here. So without further ado, let us start with the first unit, Berial. So Berial is still this PvP decent unit. Like, there are quite a few teams you can use him in, but generally speaking, none of these PvP teams are that powerful. You have better options with Bonnie in terms of team combinations. Assassins are okay, but then like you have like better offensive options in general compared to assassins right now as well. So for the cell hypo part, even for the team itself, Berial is not a key unit. So number one, he's a very niche unit to PvP, and number two, his power level in PvP I'll say is usable but by no means meta. So for this season specifically, I'll give him the skippable this season tag, at least based on the current observation, because his usage is not widespread across PvE or PvP, and even in the game mode that he's supposed to be good at, he's not at the top of the game. Okay, so the next unit is Dionel. So for Dionel's case, the combination of Dun and Dionel is still a very powerful pairing. I'll say easily top 3 in terms of the arena power level if you're able to pull the combo off. But with the introduction of Bonnie, being able to counter Dionel really easily in normal arena as well as Supreme Arena, as well as Bonnie having a really powerful team archetype in the Thunderstrike comms in general, makes it such that Dionel this season is a lot weaker. So previously I'll say he's easily one of the top PvP carries, but this season, not the top. Still very strong, but not the top. So if you want to build him up, you will need quite a fair bit of resources, and he is definitely more PvP centric and would be best paired with Dunlingr as well as Wilder support in general. But for this season specifically, I'm gonna add this skippable this season tag, because if you're brand new to the game, I think Dionel is not your highest priority because he's very niche to PvP, and in PvP itself, he's very niche to one team type that makes him work. Right, he's not as flexible as other carries like, for example, Harak, which can be fitted into a few team up types despite not being the strongest. But Harak also has the added benefit of being really good for the PvE side. So that's why, compared to like maybe Harak in terms of the hyper carry slot, or maybe even Cryonaia in terms of the hyper carry slot in the PvP side, Dionel is skippable. So that's why he has this skippable this season tag. Then we have Scarlita. So Scarlita's usage this season is uber niche. Like, he's basically used to deal with all these revive units in the AFK stages, and you use her as a counter tool against the Wilder's Thunderstrike comms in general, because he's able to fly into the air, giving your opponent less targets to snipe down, and then that's where you're able to snipe down your opponents first, and then right, you are able to get your Wilder's factional talent going to win the PvP matches. So there are quite a few usage for her, but super duper niche. Like, it's not a must have to use her. Like, you don't run her in the defense team, and you usually use her as a tag tool against certain matchups. So generally speaking, Scarlita's usage this season, very niche. More to the PvP side than the PvE side, because damage wise, she doesn't offer that much for the team now, at least with whatever kit she has, and generally speaking, even in the PvP side, also really niche. So similar to Berial, I'm also going to give her this skippable this season, although it hurts my heart to do so. But yeah, Scarlita this season just not as good or as MVP as she would like to be. So that's for Scarlita's case. Next, we talk about Reiner. So Reiner is still usable in most meta Dream Realm teams, in fact Primal Lot teams as well. So this season, I'll say Reiner is Reiner is still like this very good bossing support, specifically because of the introduction of the magic charm ability, which does true damage conversion as well as a very good attack buff, which makes it such that even for endless dream realm, Reiner still really good, because Reiner helps make some carries which are pure magical damage or pure physical damage a lot better with that true damage conversion to go toe to toe on the endless dream realm side. So very good bossing unit, and I'll say it's still a unit that I would recommend people to get to M+ if you have the ability, because Reiner has always been consistently in the bossing side for a really long time, although right now twins would be of a higher priority. But if you have the spare resources to get Reiner up, I think you can definitely elevate your bossing games in general with this unit. So on the PvP side, he is still a pretty decent formation breaker, although this season's mechanic is not that favorable for him, because there are a lot of insanely fast and bursty comms in general, which makes it such that even before he's able to benefit a lot out of the swap ability in the PvP side, your units might already be bursted down. So that's that for Reiner, but still I'll say minimally M+, right? And you can actually focus on the higher priority units like Phraesto and Twins first, and then go for Reiner. So that would be the usual suggestion if you're brand new to the game. But if you already got him to M+, then I think that's more than good enough in most cases, and you can focus your resources on the other Celestial Hypogean character, because you're using him at M+ for the EX weapon for that damage amplification on the boss itself. Okay, so next up we have Phraesto. So I'm gonna bring Twins into the discussion as well, because Twins and Phraesto, they are basically the most used characters, and for this part it actually took quite a while for me to think about how I want to phrase it, because these two units will be the most compared by most people, and a lot of people will be asking questions with regards to Phraesto as well as Twins. So I like to try my best to break down the different caveats of the units so that you guys can make a clearer decision for your own account. Okay, so for Phraesto's case, this unit is used as a damage dealer, as a frontliner, as well as a buffer with the damage reduction energy regen on 2 units, and more importantly, synergy with Harak, offering the additional body, and also the additional body can be a good skill spammer for you to proc your artifacts or proc your skills with other units. So pretty decent combo units as well. So generally speaking, this unit is more of a stats dependent unit compared to Twins, because as a frontliner as well as a damage dealer, those additional tiers gives you more stats for this unit to function. And recommended tier, I'll say, is Supreme for this unit, because ideally you want to unlock EX15 to get the maximum stats percentage, and also get the additional summon if the first one falls, because that body that Phraesto is able to summon is quite powerful, because it offers additional damage, additional body to soak up damage as well, and also just additional synergy with certain units in the game right now. So that's why Supreme and EX15. So for the Twins case, Twins is a unit that is actually really good even at just 1 copy. I'm using them at 1 copy myself on the Dream Realm side, and 1 copy is already enough to juice up your damage in the Dream Realm side. So additional tiers on this unit will give you additional buffs. On the hero focus, once you unlock to the legendary tier, you get a very powerful permanent haste buff every single time they cast the ultimate, and then you get this energy regen as well as additional vitality on the EX weapon if you get the EX weapon levels up, and last but not least, even more stats on the hyper carry through the Stellar Bond on the Supreme Plus skill. So for the Twins case, this unit can pretty much work at any tiers, but the more tiers you get, the more buffs they're able to provide for the team. So ideally, I'll say if you want, right, this unit should be at the Supreme Plus, because that's where you get the maximum stats buff on all your carries for maximum Dream Realm damage if you want to. But if not, even this unit at legendary is good enough, because that's where you get your massive team haste buff, which is actually a massive boost to your whole team already. So Twins compared to Phraesto, I'll say it's a relatively cheap unit, because you don't need to actually get their tiers up too much for them to be really impactful. Right? For Phraesto's case, if the tiers of Phraesto is a little bit too low, then the damage output of this unit will not be that powerful, and he's not going to tank as well. So if you want to choose between these two to build up first, I think you have to answer this question on which unit category you need more. Like, do you need more of a damage dealer frontliner type of unit, or do you need a buffer unit more for your account? Because depending on your own account build up, I think the priority might be different, because they're good for very different reasons, right? They are not doing the same job, and I think both of them are like the kings and queens of their own categories itself. So let's say if you are lacking a HP percentage damage dealer, you are lacking a really good frontliner with versatility, I think focusing Phraesto up in the tier sense is the better way to go, right? And then you build like 1 or 2 copies of twins, or just get twins to the legendary tier to get the massive team haste buff, so that you still get this juicing up of your damage on the Dream Realm side with twins as a whole. So that would be for those of you guys who are lacking a good frontliner, right? But if you already have very powerful frontliners built up and you have no issues with using those existing frontliners, then you can build up twins first, because the additional buff prowess as well as that stats buff on your hyper carry is definitely going to juice up your Dream Realm damage, and that would be my suggestions for the twins and Phraesto, right? Who should you prioritize? How far you should bring them up in terms of tiers? So that's for the comparison between 2 of the best units in the game. Okay, so next up we have the daughter of Lilith, because I think Talene has always been a very poster child for the season mechanics to make her really good, because for this season I think Talene has seen a rise in usage at the start, right? A dip in usage later on, and then a brand new combo arises, and then she rises up in terms of unit usage once again. So I'm gonna break down this journey and discuss about her current meta relevancy. So Talene has always been one of the strongest magical damage dealer, and this season specifically for the Dream Realm side, she is sort of pushed into relevancy in the Dream Realm side because of the boss's mechanics in Plague Creeper, right? The massive AoE damage as well as the revive potential to be eaten by Harak, so that you don't lose your units on the battlefield. And then you also have her being useful for Talesa, right? Because in the Talesa Dream Realm bosses right here, she might not be the most meta units, because people have discovered Ludovic being a much better HP percentage damage dealer there, but still really good. So in this boss fight over here, you basically can't use units, so she's sort of forced into relevancy for this boss as well. So if you run through all the different bosses right here, those are pretty much the 2 bosses that you're seeing Talene being used at. So that is with regards to her Dream Realm usage, right? And for the PvP side, I think her usage rose up because of the Thunderstrike combo together with Bonnie as well as Tarsi, because that combo is insanely powerful if you're able to build a team. And you can also use Talene for your Celestial Hypogean teams in general. So usually if you were to form a Celestial Hypogean team for the AFK stage side, I think 3 of the units would be Phraesto twins, Talene, or Harak for the carry position, depending on which unit you need more, right, in terms of the damage compartment side. So it could be both Harak as well as Talene. So that's why I say her usage has gone up, go down, and gone up once again, because it gone up because at the start she's one of the strongest magical damage dealers. So magical damage at the start of the game pretty decent. It dipped a little bit because the Thunderstrike combo hasn't been discovered yet, and then Thunderstrike combo got discovered, very powerful PvP wise, so started to see more use on the Clash front side as well as the PvP side with that existing combo right now. So I'll say generally speaking, Talene is a unit with a lot of roller coaster emotions. So like for this season specifically, I think this unit is decently versatile in terms of usage. So it's a fair investment to get her up, because you can use her for both PvE contents as well as PvP contents. But if you're talking about the PvE side of things, she's not as versatile as twins as well as Phraesto. So I would recommend you to max the 2 units first, and then consider to get Talene specifically for the combos that she's able to pull off right now. And for the PvP side, because Scarlita is so weak this season, like she doesn't have a lot of direct counter to her mechanics, so Talene's revive mechanics become even more impactful with lesser counters in the meta. So that's one of the reasons why this unit's PvP usage is also increased, because her direct counter, which is Scarlita, is just not as good this season. So that's for Talene's explanation. If you want to get her up, I'll say minimally Supreme as well as EX15, because that's where you get the revive ability. And being a damage dealer, same thing, similar to Phraesto, you need quite a bit of stats for her to function. So that's for Talene's stats recommendation as well as her current meta relevancy. Next up we have Dunlingr. So this unit is pretty much similar to Dionel, pretty tight to Dionel, and maybe Cryonaia, because you basically use Dun to hyperbuff one unit and let that unit carry. So the drop of iron usage definitely made this unit a little bit less impactful, and also because the rise of Bonnie made Dun and Dino a little bit weaker. So generally speaking, I think still a top tier combo. The Dun and Dino combo is still really strong, but just not as impactful as they would like to be or they used to be. So for this season specifically, I think also skippable if you are brand new, because like you just have better options, more versatile options both on the PvP and PvE end, and also even more powerful combos that are much easier to build up on the team side. So that's why I put Dun in the skippable this season category as well. So next one we have Harak. I think Harak is a unit that requires a little bit of build up to steamroll. Excellent on the PvE sense because there are just a lot of methods and ways to allow this unit to build up, right? There's a lot of ways for him to build up the stats on the EX weapon, and there's a lot of ways for this unit to slowly lower the HP of the enemy and then eat them up, right? For you to form that really good Harak AFK stage team. So for the AFK stage side or the PvE teams in general, I will save it for another video. But generally speaking, I think Harak is more PvE skewed compared to the PvP side, because on the PvP side, there's just a lot of combos that beat this unit. Like Dun and Dino is one, because Dino comes online a lot faster to burst down Harak before he's able to start gaining stats. But if you're able to build a team in PvP that is stally enough to let Harak build up the EX weapon stats itself, that's where this unit can be a mega hyper carry there as well. So very situation dependent unit in the PvP sense, but I'll say one of the insanely versatile characters in the game as well, because you can easily use him for most of your Dream Realm teams at the highest level for damage, and you also use him for the AFK stage side, and you can also use him for the PvP side. So not as versatile as obviously Phraesto and Twins, but at least top 3 or top 4 right now in the current meta. So this unit requires quite a fair bit of team building as well to sort of max out the ability, because you need to sort of have other units to synergize, like Phraesto for the additional body, having some sustain units so that you keep your units healthy to prevent this guy from eating up your whole team, or having units that helps you kill other enemies faster so that he's able to continue his fist stacks in general. So that's for Harak's evaluation. So this is a unit that is, I'll say, pretty high in priority after both Twins and Phraesto. So if you have both Twins and Phraesto built up in terms of their respective tiers as well as your team relevancy, then you can start building out Harak in general, because usually the highest meta teams, they will have both Twins and Phraesto, and then maybe another Harak for the best damage. So that's why this unit will be either the 3rd or 4th in line depending on your priorities. Next we have Cryonaia, the latest addition. So this season specifically, I think Cryonaia is seeing some use in certain top tier Dream Realm teams for her additional time freeze ability, but in the Dream Realm side you wouldn't actually need the likes of Harak as well as the likes of Phraesto and Twins to max out your damage. So if you're building up units for the bossing side, then Cryonaia won't be on the top of the list, because she's like an additional good to have to make you do more damage, but you still need your fundamentally strong Dream Realm characters first for her to shine. So that's that. So if you're building her up, probably more so for the PvP side. So on the PvP side, this unit also requires quite a fair bit of team building for her to survive and become the hyper carry. That's why I say that she's pretty similar to Dionel in terms of how you want to team build her, because they are both very impactful if they're able to come online. So they are very investment dependent, and there are a few teams that will work with Cryonaia. But this season specifically, I think Bonnie Tarsi Thunderstrike comp is insanely powerful. So let's say if you want to use Cryonaia in your PvP team against that team, then you need a Siren to sort of cover for the initial Thunderstrike burst, because Cryonaia is not exactly the tankiest unit outside of her ultimate, so she still gets bursted down really quickly. So that's one thing to keep a lookout for. But nonetheless, definitely one of the top tier PvP characters right now that you can build a team around, because if she comes online, you pretty much win the fight with her ultimate online itself. So that's for Cryonaia's evaluation. So if you want to build her up, you will need, I'll say, Supreme Plus tier as well as her EX weapon 15 for the time freeze ability, obviously, because even if you're putting her for the maximum dream realm damage, you're using her for the time freeze, and you kind of want to increase the tiers as much as possible so that she's able to perform at the highest level for the PvP side, depending on your district tiers in general. So that's for Cryonaia's evaluation. Now let's move on to the recommended priority. So for the PvE side, still twins as well as Phraesto first in terms of build up, followed by Harak as well as Reiner, and then followed by Talene in general. So this part didn't really change too much because these units, they are still some of the best PvE characters in the current meta. And then for the PvP side, I'm gonna put Talene higher than Phraesto as well as twins, and Cryonaia as well as Dun and Dionel, because right now this Bonnie Tarsi Talene comp is insanely powerful, and Talene as a PvP character is very hard to deal with if there's no way for you to bring her down quickly, because she just keeps on coming back to life to do massive damage, and then she's able to grant this prior renewal on one of your allies to revive them. So this makes her insanely good for the PvP side, especially with lesser counters right now. Her PvP relevancy is definitely there in multiple different teams, and compared to Phraesto as well as the twin side, I think Talene in general is just meant for PvP in terms of a kit. Like once she gets her ultimate off, once she's uninterrupted, very powerful there. And then for Phraesto and twins, you are using them together with, I'll say, like either your Haraks or your hyper carries or your Cryonaia to form your celestial Hypogean teams to hyper carry in the Supreme Arena side. Both twins as well as Harak, I do think they're insanely versatile for your PvP side, because if you need a really good tank, you just slot in a Phraesto on the front line to buff up 2 units and mid shield for the team. If you need a really good buffer, support and healer, you throw in the twins to fill up their healer buffing slot. So these 2 units insanely versatile and decently usable in the Supreme Arena side. So PvP, I think highly recommended. And then we have Cryonaia, because Cryonaia, if she gets off her ultimate, you pretty much win the game. And then we have Dun and Dionel. I group them in the same category because I think both of them together is the strongest, and this pairing is still really good. It's just that there are a lot more answers and they are very investment heavy, so that's why I put them in the lowest priority. But if you do believe that Dun and Dionel is still really powerful and you want to give it a try, then you can build them up first so that you are able to see their burst potential yourself. So that's with the Celestial Hypogean priority. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna end the video here, and thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.